UFC Fight Night Vegas 22, Brunson versus Holland takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Johnny Eduardo versus Anthony Burkak. I like this fight to start off the card. We have not seen Johnny Eduardo since June of 2018 when he took on Nathaniel Wood. It was a very good fight, by the way. I know a lot of people just see it as Johnny Eduardo lost by second round Darce choke. If you look at that fight, Johnny Eduardo was outlanding Nathaniel Wood on the feet early, rocked him at one point in that fight, really had Nathaniel Wood in a bad situation from the get-go of that fight, cracked him real hard. Nathaniel Wood had to recover, he was wobbly all over the place, eventually got the job done in the second when he got his wits about him, but it showed me that Johnny Eduardo is still dangerous, and I'll just say it how it is. Anthony Burkak is hot garbage. He is absolutely garbage. His last win was against a guy who is 5-5. That's how he got into the UFC. Other than that, he took a short notice bout against Gustavo Lopez, got completely destroyed there. I mean, I just don't see any good fighting skill from this man whatsoever. Maybe once upon a time, he started to put together some good wins, but the last time we saw Johnny Eduardo in the octagon was around the same time that we were seeing Anthony Burkak lose a split decision to 10-10 regional fighter Ji Hoon Moon. And I'm just not going to trust Burkak to go out there. I feel like Johnny Eduardo is going to come out all guns blazing, catch Burkak in the first round. Burkak got dropped by Gustavo Lopez in their fight originally as soon as the fight started. And I think that Johnny Eduardo is going to come out all guns blazing, try and get a finish. And I think he will get a finish in the first round. Johnny Eduardo will rise again and get a win over Anthony Burkak because Anthony Burkak is absolute garbage. Moving on up the card, JP Buys versus Bruno Silva. I believe that JP Buys is going to get the job done. I think that Bruno Silva's going to win. I think Bruno Silva's going to beat JP Buys, okay? Now, hear me out. JP Buys is a very good fighter. He has fought some decent guys here and there. His fight on the Contender Series ended with some controversy. It wasn't like a clear win. It was a bit of a weird stoppage. But oh well, he was on his way to winning the fight anyway and doing quite good. But that was against a 6-3 guy. Before that, it was against a 4-2 guy. I haven't seen him take on a real good regional guy like I've seen Bruno Silva take on. And when I'm talking about regional guys, I'm talking about Tagir Ulanbekov. I'm talking about David Dvorak. And Bruno Silva has made it competitive with both of those men. I mean, the Tagir Ulanbekov fight is razor close. And Tagir Ulanbekov, in my opinion, before joining the UFC, was the best regional flyweight there was. And now Bruno Silva, after coming off a really close competitive loss to him, I'm probably going to take him as an underdog here against JP Buys. I know that JP Buys is the new guy. He's the younger guy. He's the one that the UFC's putting all their sort of value behind. But he lost to Joby Sanchez on the Contender Series. Got TKO'd there. Really gassed out later on in that fight as well. I feel like Bruno Silva can get it done. If you can go to a razor close decision with Tagir Ulanbekov, I think you can about get it done against a guy in JP Buys, especially because JP Buys does slow down in his fights as they go on. He starts so fast. We saw that on the Contender Series against Joby Sanchez. I feel like he's going to lose here to Bruno Silva, and Bruno Silva's going to pull off the upset. I can just see him sort of wearing on JP Buys as the fight goes on. He's got good grappling. He's got good stand-up. He's got a decent enough chin. He's been KO'd once by a head kick, I believe. Other than that, same as JP Buys. One KO loss in his career. Bruno Silva's going to get the job done. He's fought way better competition. And I know their records look a little bit weird, but I'm taking Bruno Silva here. Getting the job done over JP Buys by unanimous decision, 29-28. Losing the first round. Winning the second two. Moving on up the card, Julija Avila versus Julija Stoliarenko. I'm going to go with Julija Avila gets the job done against Julija Stoliarenko. I think that she's a little bit better, a little bit larger as well for the division. Julija Stoliarenko took a short notice bout against Yanez Kanetskaya, got beat up a little bit in that bout, but that's okay. Julija Avila lost to Ciara Eubanks. Neither are really good fighters whatsoever, but they're on a card because they're so stunning and brave. Let me just check what that coin flip was again, sorry. Just to make sure. Okay, cool. We're going to go with Julija Avila for this fight on the card. I'm trying out a new technique for the card today. Montel Jackson versus Jesse Strader. I'm going to go with Montel Jackson. I think this is the lock of the card, and the odds dictate that massively. I don't think there's a logical way for me to predict Jesse Strader here. He's a good fighter, fighting out of California. A little bit of soy genetics, but it's all good. Montel Jackson, I believe, is going to get the job done here. Pretty convincingly. I'll call a third round finish for Montel Jackson. Jesse Strader's a good fighter. He's got some quick finishes in his career. Starts out fast. He's not scared. He goes out there gung-ho. Got some quick finishes. I don't see him finishing Montel Jackson in the first round. I just don't see that happening whatsoever. Montel Jackson, in my opinion, is a really underrated prospect in that bantamweight division. Had a razor-close fight with Brett Johns. He's got ridiculously sized hands. He can completely grasp around someone's wrist, and they just can't get him off of their wrist. It feels like it's a little bit OP, I'll be honest with you guys. I think Montel Jackson's hands need to be literally reduced in size because it's such unfair genetics. He's got giant hands. They said he had bigger hands than Ngannou on one of his fights. I feel like Montel Jackson's definitely going to get the job done here against Jesse Strader. And I'll call a second round TKO. I think both guys come out firing. Jesse Strader's trying to push the action early. Montel Jackson stays patient, sort of controls himself a little bit more, paces himself a little bit more. Come the second round, he'll have a bunch more energy, and I think he'll get the job done against Jesse Strader by second round TKO to Montel Jackson. Moving on up the card, Trevin Giles versus Roman Dolidze. Another great fight on the card. Roman Dolidze back at 185. He's fought there before in his career, but this one's on short notice. He's taking it at 185. Risky fight, but I just haven't seen anything to tell me in terms of grappling with Trevin Giles that he's going to be able to deal with the grappling of Roman Dolidze, because I know that Roman Dolidze last fought John Allen, and John Allen isn't really a huge name, but John Allen is still a 13-5 guy. I know it says split decision, but he clearly beat John Allen in that fight. It was close, don't get me wrong. He really pulled away at the end. I did worry for a second that Trevin Giles was going to maybe be able to pull this off in the later rounds once Roman Dolidze got a little bit tired, but I think Roman's just going to be a little bit too big, a little bit too more too aggressive in there, and a little bit too good in the grappling for Trevin Giles. He's a much larger man. He's going to be a much stronger man. I think he's got better stand-up. He's got better jiu-jitsu. I think Trevin Giles' one ability here is maybe to keep the cardio going and win in the later rounds. I don't see that happening. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what Roman Dolidze looks like down at 185, because he does look like he carries a little bit of unnecessary flab on him at 205. I just think if you're able to manhandle 205ers, you should be able to go out there and do the same thing to Trevin Giles, who has been manhandled in his career before by a couple of guys, most notably lost to Zach Cummings by a rear naked choke at one point. Guillotine choke, to Zach Cummings in the third round. He started slowing down in that fight because of all the grappling. Same with Gerald Meerschaert, because of the grappling, he started to slow down. I'm actually going to go with a third round submission for Roman Dolidze. I think Trevin Giles has a blueprint to beat him out there already, and that is to wear him out, grapple with him. Eventually he'll give up a bad position in the third round because he's so tired of the grappling, and I think Roman Dolidze will secure a third round submission win against Trevin Giles. Moving on up the card, Grant Dawson versus Leonardo Santos. On the prelims for some reason. I think this could be on the main card. It's an amazing fight. Grant Dawson 16-1, Leonardo Santos 18-3. Both guys are savages. I'm taking Dawson though. Leonardo Santos is a risky man to bet against because he continues to get it done despite his age. But I am going to go with Grant Dawson here, man. He's a James Krause product. He's a very good wrestler, an extremely good grappler. And one thing I like about his grappling as well is he's not a scramble-heavy grappler. He is okay to just sort of rest in a position and land total strikes. When you're a scrambly guy, you sort of give opportunities to the jiu-jitsu guy in the grappling situations. Otherwise, you can just sort of lay in half guard or full guard and be somewhat safe. But, I mean, not full guard, but half guard. You can be somewhat safe in those positions. And I think Grant Dawson will look for that half guard here against Leonardo Santos, who's a very, very dangerous guy here, still in his old age of 41 years of age. I just don't think he's going to get it done against Grant Dawson. Grant Dawson is really, really good. And Leonardo Santos in his last few fights have been shown to slow down quite a bit. I know he fought through some groin shots before in his previous fight, and he's actually looked really good. He's got a KO win over Kevin Lee, which is a really good win looking back at it now, but I feel like he is going to maybe run out of juice here against Grant Dawson, and Dawson's going to put a little bit of a pace on him. It's going to be a little bit too much, and he's going to lose a unanimous decision to Grant Dawson in the grappling. But the stand-up as well, man. Grant Dawson's got some good hands. His chin is worrying, and Santos can crack, so there is some good value here for the dog of Leonardo Santos, but I am going to trust the favourite of Grant Dawson. Moving up to the lightweight division, the featherweight division, a little bit more talent stacked, and there's a little bit more faster, fast twitch muscle, good takedowns. I think Grant Dawson's going to be getting the better of him here for the majority of the fight. Maybe Leonardo Santos mounts a bit of a comeback in the third round, but I think Dawson can control him and win the fight for the first two rounds against the cage maybe, and I think Dawson wins it just by doing that. Not really going for like the back take or really like any submission attempts of his own. I think he's just going to settle in positions where he's somewhat ahead and land those total strikes to unanimous decision win. Grant Dawson gets the job done. Marion Reneau versus Macy Chiasson is the headliner of the prelims. Heads Marion, Reneau, tails Macy, Chiasson. We're looking at tails here. I'm going to go with Macy, Chiasson. Gets the job done. I think she's a little bit taller, which she is. She's massively taller than Marion Reneau. A lot better of a fighter as well, in my opinion. Marion Reneau does seem like she's slowing down with her age. She's on a 3-fight losing streak right now in the UFC. Not looking the best right now. I mean, 3-fight losing streak. She's lost to some really good opponents in Raquel Pennington, Yana Kunitskaya, and Kat Zingano, don't get me wrong. She does have some good wins before that, but I do feel like Macy Chiasson's going to win. And the majority of women's fights, of course, end up like 80% against the cage. Taller fighter, going to have some advantages there against the cage. Chiasson's actually a good fighter, in my opinion. She lost her fight as well to Lena Landsberg, which is not a good loss to have, but she did bounce back against Shayna Young, got a clear win there. She's looking better and better each time we see her go out there. She's got some decent wins on her record. Pani Kianzad, rear naked choke in the second round. Very good fighter. I think she'll go out there and get it done by decision against Marion Reneau. I'll say maybe a split decision, 29-28. It's going to be a close competitive one, but I think the youth and the size of Macy Chiasson will get the job done against Marion Reneau. Moving on up the card to the main card, Cheyanne Buys versus Montserrat Conejo. Heads is Cheyanne Buys, because that's what I want from her. We're going with Cheyanne Buys. Gets the job done on the main card opener against Montserrat Conejo. I think Montserrat Conejo is a good fighter. She's got some good wins. She's 9-1. She's got a decent record. She's got some finishes as well. She just hasn't fought anyone that good so far in her career. Neither is Cheyanne Buys, but I just think the younger girl here is probably going to be improving more between the fights. She's going to be a little bit tougher, in my opinion. She's a little bit bigger than Montserrat Conejo, stepping in on short notice here. 63-inch reach. She's got that reach advantage in the strawweight division. I think she'll go out there and work Montserrat pretty convincingly. Maybe there's going to be a close first round, but taking it on this short of notice, I'll trust Cheyanne Buys to have the cardio in the later rounds to pull ahead where she needs to, and I think she'll probably win the fight by doing that. Now, Montserrat Ruiz is actually a decent girl. She's a good fighter, fighting out of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, King's MMA. I think Cheyanne Buys is going to have the cardio in her to pull ahead in those later rounds just by having that full camp and get the job done by unanimous decision. Cheyanne Buys gets it done. Moving on up the card, Kenan Song versus Max Payne Griffin. I'm going to go with Max Griffin here. Kenan Song is good. I think he can be overwhelmed by a guy with a good work rate like Max Griffin, coming off a big win against his last opponent, which was a very crazy moment in a fight. He actually sliced a guy's ear off, which is just so nasty to see, but it happens in the fight game, you know what I mean? Ramiz Brahimaj was the guy's name, sliced his ear off completely, but he was winning the fight before that as well. And Ramiz Brahimaj was a dangerous guy on the come-up. I actually picked Ramiz to win that fight because he's won some really good fights on the regionals. I feel like Max Griffin can hang with the good guys in the division. Kenan Song is also a good fighter. I just feel like Max Griffin's going to get this one done, man. With the pressure, with the volume, pushing him up against the cage, making him grapple. I mean, Kenan Song arguably lost against Derek Krantz in that fight. I mean, he landed some good shots here and there, but they were in China at the time and a decision went to him. There's like arguments to be made about that fight, and I don't like that against a guy like Derek Krantz. You don't see Max Griffin just letting any old bum through. You know what I mean? He has lost some fights. I thought he beat Thiago Alves really, really clearly. Lost to Alessio Zaleski dos Santos. Lost to Colby Covington. Lost to Alex Oliveira. Lost to Alex Morono. Same as Kenan Song. Also lost to Alex Morono. I'd argue that Max Griffin did a little bit better. I think that Max Griffin's going to go out there and get the job done by unanimous decision. Putting a bit more of a work rate on Kenan Song. I think he's just going to get overwhelmed a little bit. Fun fact about Kenan Song, lost to Brad Riddell and Israel Adesanya by KO in his career. Not the best, but still, he fought Israel Adesanya, so that's something you can maybe talk to his kids about someday. But I do feel like Max Griffin's going to go out there, put a bit of a pace on him. He has a massive reach advantage here, which is going to help him in the stand-up situations. Max Payne Griffin gets the job done by unanimous decision, 30-27. Moving on up the card, Adrian Yanez versus Gustavo Lopez. I'm going to go with Adrian Yanez by, I don't know how, but I'm going to go with Adrian Yanez here. I really trust this guy. He is looking really good recently. Really, really good. I know that Gustavo Lopez doesn't really have the best shake of things. He beat Anthony Burkak, but who really is that? It was his teammate. Took it on short notice just to make the fight happen, basically. An absolute bum. Merab Dvalishvili really did ragdoll him a little bit, but that was on short notice, and he didn't get beaten up badly. He just got sort of ragdolled for 3 rounds, but he didn't get beaten up too badly. But I do believe that Adrian Yanez is going to put him out here. Perhaps. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I do believe that Adrian Yanez is going to put him out cold here. Gustavo Lopez has been put out by Andre Yul before in his career, John Castaneda before in his career. I think he's going to lose here to Adrian Yanez because I just can't help but notice after that last Adrian Yanez performance that this man is a savage, okay? The calmness that you see in the cage with him is the calmness of a veteran, mini Masvidal. I mean, he's got the calmness in there. Very, very patient in the cage, waits for his moment, doesn't overthrow shots or anything like that, doesn't crowd his work or try going crazy for a finish if he notices he has a guy rocked. Very patient. And that's something that is hard to see in a fighter. So the fact that we've seen that so early with Adrian Yanez, this kind of patience and this kind of structurally breaking down of opponents. Brandy Huang was 11-1 at the time before Adrian Yanez shut him off on the Contender Series as well. He's done it again by head kick KO against Victor Rodriguez. I think he's going to get it done again here against Gustavo Lopez. Dangerous fight. Really dangerous fight, but I am going to go with Adrian Yanez. First round KO. I think the odds are good because it is a close fight, but I do think he's going to be able to get this one done. I believe in Adrian Yanez massively, and I think he's going to go on to be a really good bantamweight contender. Moving on up the card, Tai Tuivasa versus Don'Tale Mayes. I'm going to go with Tai Tuivasa here. Don'Tale Mayes, great fighter, he didn't have a good last fight. I'm sounding a bit like Nate Diaz here now, but Don'Tale Mayes did not have a good last fight. I'll tell you that much indeed. He had a real tough contest with Roque Martinez. You know what I mean? Like, don't have a really close decision with Roque Martinez where you win. Like, I know he won the fight, but, like, don't make it competitive in any way. Like, please, look at Roque Martinez. He shouldn't be here, okay? Don't like what I'm seeing from Don'Tale Mayes. Got beaten up badly by Cyril Gane and basically played with the entire fight. Rodrigo Nascimento managed to finish him as well. And we've seen Rodrigo Nascimento go on to lose to Clarisse Daukaus. It's a great fighter, is Don'Tale Mayes. He's got some decent wins. He's got that power. I don't see him KOing Tai Tuivasa on the feet. I definitely don't see him out grappling Tai Tuivasa. I don't see him out striking Tai Tuivasa. And if he can't out grapple him, he's going to be stuck striking with Tai Tuivasa. And I think Bam Bam's going to bam bam away all over Don'Tale Mayes, chopping at the legs early with that calf kick that I like so much from Tai. Very good calf kicks in the game, and I think he's going to use them on Don'Tale Mayes to set up his shots upstairs, and I think this is actually going to be a decision. I don't see Tai Tuivasa finishing Don'Tale Mayes because Don'Tale Mayes is a pretty difficult guy to finish. He's lost in his career before in the later rounds. Maybe you could see something happen there. I don't see Tai doing it by submission, and that's often the way that Don'Tale Mayes has been finished recently. I feel like he's going to win this one by a decision. Tai Tuivasa goes the distance, wins the first 2 rounds. Maybe Don'Tale Mayes makes a bit of a comeback in the third, but I think Tuivasa is good enough to control the first 2 rounds pretty clearly, and I think he'll win this one by 29-28 unanimous decision. Moving on to the co-main event, Gregor Gillespie versus Brad Riddell. I'm going to go with Gregor Gillespie here. I like Brad Riddell. I think he's a good dog. He's got power in his hands. I just don't think he's shown us enough for me to say that he's going to go out there and beat a guy that's grappling heavy like Gregor Gillespie here. Now, if Gregor Gillespie goes out there and Misha Serkinovs this as a grappler and just starts swinging back and forth with Brad Riddell like a fucking retard, fucking Misha Serkinov losing my money. All good, though. I'm not even angry about it. It's all good. I just think in the Magomed Mustafayev fight, we saw that Brad Riddell maybe shouldn't have won. You know what I mean? Like, I know that grappling without damage is hard to score, but like when a guy controls a guy for that long, like Brad Riddell really got controlled badly against Magomed Mustafayev, and I don't know about you guys, but I think Gregor Gillespie's a better grappler than Magomed Mustafayev. I don't know what it is, but you know, everyone talks about this guy. If it wasn't for Jordan Burroughs, this guy would be the guy that is Jordan Burroughs right now in the wrestling world. Gregor Gillespie has got good grappling. He got sort of smacked against Kevin Lee for standing for a little bit too long, but that worries me a little bit, and that's the only thing that worries me. However, it's not like that with Brad Riddell. It's not just, oh, if you're standing with him, he's going to KO you. Because he didn't KO Mikey Vatua, who was 5-8 at the time. You know what I mean? He didn't KO Jamie Mullarkey, and Jamie Mullarkey took his best shots for 3 rounds. Didn't KO Alex Da Silva, and Alex Da Silva took his best shots, and had some good moments in that fight as well. I feel like Gregor Gillespie's going to really do well on the feet, not get KO'd on the feet, which is worrying because he is coming off a KO loss. I don't see Riddell landing a head kick. I think he's going to look for a big punch, and I don't think he's going to land that against Gregor Gillespie, and I think Gregor Gillespie's going to control him on the ground for 3 rounds. 30-27, Gregor Gillespie, unanimous decision, controls Brad Riddell throughout the fights. Moving on up the card, Derek Brunson versus Kevin Holland. Okay, Derek Brunson. We meet again. My old nemesis. I'm picking against him again. It won't happen again. He won't upset the guy that I'm picking again. Okay? Kevin Holland is going to beat Derek Brunson because Derek Brunson can't fight. He has actually really good. And he has got some good wins. He got a TKO of Edmund Shabazian. I'd argue that Kevin Holland's performance against Darren Stewart is much better than Edmund Shabazian's performance against Darren Stewart. But then again, what does it even mean? It doesn't mean anything because Anders was about to fucking TKO Darren Stewart in the first round. And Anders isn't better than Kevin Holland. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland here, okay? He's just coming off a big win against Jacare Souza, and not only was it just like a fluke punch that caught a chinny Jacare Souza off guard, it was off of his back, and it was quite lucky, don't get me wrong, but before that, he was putting him in some triangle chokes. Like, Kevin Holland, I think, has shown something that we haven't seen from a previous contender going up against Derek Brunson yet in Edmund Shabazian, which is a good jiu-jitsu game off of his back. So if it does end up on the ground, I think I can trust Kevin Holland a little bit more than I can Edmund Shabazian, and I think he's going to be able to do work early and get the job done by TKO. I don't see Derek Brunson winning this one. I think he's got a very good chance because his name is Derek Brunson, so he kind of has a knack for pulling off the impossible somehow, regardless of what his chin tells him the answer is. He will keep on pushing through, and he makes it happen. Ian Heinich fight, he made it happen. He got rocked in that fight. He got cracked against Edmund Shabazian, but he made it happen. Did very well there on the feet, landed a couple of good body kicks. I don't think he's going to be able to go out there and chop at the legs of Kevin Holland, and I think he's going to be desperately shooting. And also, history tells us whenever it gets a little bit emotional between Derek Brunson and his opponent, he tends to shit the fucking bed like he did against Israel Adesanya. The last guy that started talking to Derek Brunson and getting in this sort of trash talk situation was Israel Adesanya, and Brunson completely cacked his fucking pants in that fight like Romero did when he fought him, but on the other way this time. I think Derek Brunson's going to go out there, look for a desperate shot, get kneed a couple of times. We've seen that Kevin Holland can land big finishing blows in those close clinch exchanges. We saw that against Anthony Hernandez, which didn't look like a good win at the time, but now it does because he just choked out a 7-time Abu Dhabi World. What the fuck is this sport? Anthony Hernandez just choked out a 7-time Abu Dhabi World Champion. What the fuck? Holland has shown he can fight on the inside when it gets a little bit close with his elbows in the clinch. He's shown he can fight at range with his front kicks and his 1-2s and his good jab. He has shown that he can fight off of his back in the grappling situations. I know he had some tough times earlier on in his career, but even against Thiago Santos early on in his career, almost submitted Thiago Santos twice on the ground. I feel like he has shown more than other prospects up the division have shown, and I can trust him more off of his back here against Derek Brunson. I think he's going to land a good shot on Derek Brunson in the second round, I'll say, by TKO. Kevin Holland gets it done, but I'm worried because it's Derek Brunson. He could ruin everything. And I tell you this, if Derek Brunson wins, the middleweight division, especially after Blachowicz versus Adesanya, is officially the shittest division in the UFC. I don't care. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Goodbye. See you later. Toodle pip.